Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. In today's talk, I was going to go through the energy of the full moon or Purnima that's coming up in a few days, December 15th, 2024. This talk is from a Vedic astrology perspective, or Jyotish, as it's known as in Sanskrit, so ancient Indian astrology that's more than 5,000 years old. And it seems like the energy of this particular moment is updating traditions. So let's take a look. Note beforehand, the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, financial, professional, or life advice of any kind. If you are in need, please contact an appropriate professional for support. Then you might take a minute or two to read the rest of this disclaimer. Okay, if you're new to Vedic astrology, Jyotish are my videos. All of my teaching videos on the subject are my concepts playlist. They can be found there. Wherever you see a double asterisk in one of my talks, that means there's a teaching video on that subject if you'd like to learn more. My channel is all about playlists. I'm good about organizing my videos into different topic areas, so they're each different playlists. So, like, there's a playlist on planets, grahas, there's a playlist on houses, bhavas, yogas, planetary combinations, and then there are others, so that things are, easy to find, especially if you're trying to learn astrology or Vedic astrology. If you like to learn astrology by looking at famous birth charts, I have a video titled Birth Chart Archive List 2024, where I've listed all the famous birth charts I've analyzed on the channel. So famous people, famous places, famous moments in time, and then the video you can find them in. All right. So especially if you're new to all of this, these are other videos that will be helpful to get more out of this talk. So you can watch them before, during, after, so North, South, and East Indian style charts. I do cover Western style charts in that video as well. Introduction to navigating a birth chart. The lugna, also known as the ascendant, rising sign, or first house. Introduction to the constellations or rashis. Constellation or rashi categories. Planetary aspects. Natural, benefic, and malefic planets or grahas. Big bala or directional strength. Chidra grahas or planets of vulnerability. Planetary exaltation, debilitation, or uccha, nicca. Swagrahas are planets in their own sign or star. Planet retrogression or vakri. Nakshatras or lunar mansions. Kartari yogas, the scissors combination. Budhaditya yoga, the intelligence combination. Margashirsha yoga, the networking combination. And parivartana yoga, the exchange of houses. All right, so lots to learn, potentially. Okay, so here's the chart for this particular moment in time of the full moon Purnima that's happening at 15 December 2024. The specific time is 4:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the time zone I live in. And you can see that we're dealing with a Libra rising chart. So Tula, well, looking at here. How do you know that? Well, this is a North Indian style chart. That's what I use in my work. And so to get to the ascendant, rising sign, first house, lugna, all different names for the same thing. You go to the top diamond in the middle, and it's kind of covered up, but there's a little 7 in the bottom corner. That 7 refers to the 7th zodiac constellation of Libra or Tula. Okay. And so to get to the other houses, you count up and back, or counterclockwise to get to the other houses, and you count inclusively. So you start at 1, and then the next up and back is 2nd, and so on and so forth. Okay. All right. So we've got a Libra rising here. So some context before we get into things house by house. The day lord is Saturn, and the Hara lord or our lord is Moon. Okay. Now Saturn is in its own sign in the 5th house of Aquarius. Okay. And Saturn, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, so this is like fixed ideas. Okay. And Saturn being in Aquarius makes, this 5th house strong in several ways. Okay. It's just going to shore up, the house, basically. Saturn happens to be in a nakshatra or lunar mansion called Shatabisha. So there are 27 lunar mansions, and every night the moon passes through another one. And each lunar mansion has a different energy associated with it. Okay. So Shatabisha is translated as 100 healers. So Saturn is a planet on its own. It can represent obstacles, delays, chronic illness, chronic disease, traditional, conservative, especially when it's in Aquarius. Okay. because that can be like really like old school type mentality, especially because we're talking about the fifth house, which represents the intellect. Okay, so kind of top of the mind type stuff. And Saturn, though, being in Shatabisha especially, will bring more of that Saturnian energy to Shatabisha. So you might end up with things that are difficult to heal, things that are delayed in healing, that sort of thing. Okay. So, and we do have Mars aspecting Aquarius here. So what's interesting is Mars is retrograde. That line under Mars means it's retrograde, so it's going backwards. And usually when a planet is in retrogression, well, in Vedic astrology, it gives it strength. Okay, because anytime you see a planet doing something different in the sky with your own eyes, right? Because again, Vedic astrology is more than 5,000 years old before any fancy technology was available. The way that they learned about the planets and the stars and and movements in the sky, and what they meant was anything that kind of changed course, did something different, kind of caught their eye. And so by catching their eye, it influenced them more. It kind of drew their attention, and so it gains strength even in that way. Okay, so Mars is retrograde here, and Mars is in a sign, its sign of debilitation, of Cancer. Okay, so Mars is a planet representing um, leadership, but kind of like more of a pioneer type leader. Also, more of like an action-oriented leader, like on the ground in the trenches type leader, like more of a CEO, hands-on daily activity type executive rather than a president. Now, not that a president can't be both. Um, or a president can't be hands-on, but a president can sometimes be more of a figurehead. And so Mars is definitely the like nuts and bolts, kind of leader. Also, Mars can represent again. It's an erratic planet because its pattern in the sky is travel through the skies a bit erratic. Um, and so yeah, so Mars, Mars debilitated means that there's going to be intermittent, wavering actions here. Now, luckily, Mars is in a pretty nice nakshatra called Pusha. Pusha is represented by cow's udder. So it's this kind of idea of like nurturing, stabilizing, providing care for. Okay. So there's this kind of erratic energy of providing care for. Okay, generally speaking, that's aspecting this massive Saturn in the fifth house. So this is kind of like a juxtaposition of this very solid, steady Saturnian energy, but we've got this kind of Mars, sort of kicking at the door, so to speak, like challenging, I think, the Saturn here. Now, overall, this person, again, if this was a person, is going to be much more um, kind of mentally more Saturnian. So they're going to be more of like a long-term chess playing, put all the pieces together, probably before you act type person. And then the action, again, luckily Mars again is in Pusha, so there's, you know, um, good intentions behind the actions of the person, but the thing is the actions are inconsistent, I would say, because Mars is debilitated and kind of, a bit erratic. Yeah, in general. Um, but there is a bit of rebelliousness, but again, there's this, massive Saturn, I think, containing it, repressing it a bit. Okay. Yeah. So Saturn being, again, solidly in Aquarius, showing that up in the fifth house, um, that can bring trouble, even though there's strength in the fifth house, that can bring trouble to the fifth house. Especially because also, if we're looking at chidra grahas, which are planets of vulnerability, Saturn is one of them. So chidra grahas are kind of, they call them piercing planets, and they're planets of vulnerability. So they can be like a sore spot for people, and the things that the planets represent, they can be an Achilles heel, can be a thorn in their side, something that always kind of, nags at the person, that sort of thing. So with Saturn and being, strong in the fifth house, this can bring delays and obstacles to fifth house matters, such as children, such as, again, the mind, Like Saturn can bring a lot of anxiety, depression, skepticism, doubt, that sort of thing. And what else? Fifth house also represents, fun, frankly, creativity. And what else? Oh, and then if we're talking medically, the fifth house represents like the upper GI. It can also actually represent the heart. Some people take the fifth house to represent the heart, which I think works pretty well. So this could even be like palpitations because Saturn is a Vata planet. So Vata, you can loosely translate as wind. So if we're talking about Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, there can be a lot of wind in this area, so upper GI and the chest area. So there can be problems with breathing, and kind of rhythm, the chest area. So like heart and lungs, that sort of kind of thing, and then the upper GI. So yeah, I would say that this is a fairly nervous person, is what I'm getting. There's a little bit of duality here, even though we're not talking about a dual rising sign. So anyway, we're starting off with, difficulty here just because the day lord is Saturn. Then the Hara lord is Moon. And so Moon is kind of a mixed bag. Moon is in its exaltation sign of Taurus. But you can see Moon is in the last degree of the sign at 29 degrees 40 minutes. So that's a Sunday Moon. So any planet that's in the first or last degree of a sign is going to be inherently unstable. Okay. Now, so it's exalted, but Sunday, and then it's also full because it's directly opposite the sun. So fullness is going to bring strength. But then it's in the eighth house of chronic, illness and chronic, problems and chronic health issues. Yeah. So I would think that this person has mental and emotional issues sort of ongoing. Okay. Especially because this massive Saturn that we've been talking about also aspects Mercury. So Mercury and Moon are the two mind planets, and Mercury is more the rational, analytical mind, and Moon is more the intuitive, emotional mind. So especially with Saturn being on Mercury, that's going to bring delays, obstacles to making decisions, uh, clarity, communication, possibly travel as well. So again, this person's going to be mentally quite logical, sometimes perhaps a bit distant in nature. Because again, when somebody's thinking so much, so long, so hard about things, and making decisions, that can be off-putting to people. Like they end up being quite a bit in their head. So I actually, even though we're not talking about a Gemini Lugna, I just published my video on Gemini, and I talk in there about how Gemini sometimes can be a social butterfly, but they can also be quite distant, especially when Saturn is, aspecting or influencing Mercury. And so we have a bit of that energy here, again, even though we're not talking about a Gemini Lugna. Okay. So I would say just between Saturn and Moon as the day lord and hour lord here, difficulty with the mind and emotions here. Okay. Then the Dasha period or planetary period is Mars, Saturn. We're picking up more Saturnian energy, Rahu, and Moon. So again, more Saturn and Moon energy. So Mars, again, brings unexpected actions here. And Rahu brings a bit of ambition, I would say, as well. The thing is, Rahu is in the sixth house of acute problems and issues. And the thing is, the Lord of the sixth house has gone to the eighth. So it seems like, acute problems are becoming chronic, again, if this is a person. So again, so far we're looking at a bit of a sticky issue, if nothing else. Okay, now this Dasha period is switching from Mars, Saturn, Rahu, Moon to Mars, Mercury on February 15th. So we've got a couple months in this Mars, Saturn energy. So when we move to Mercury, well, one, we're lifting up the Saturn. Okay, we're moving out of this Saturnian energy. So and the thing is, Mercury happens to be in a nakshatra called Anuradha. So Anuradha is a victorious energy, and it's victory through building bridges. So it seems as though, Mercury on its own in this person's chart, it's well-intended, kind of like Mars. Like Mars is in Pusha, Mercury's in Anurata. So Mercury's well-intended, like the logical mind is well-intended. But this kind of fears and doubts, skepticism, wanting to put all the ducks in the row type energy slows down Mercury. So it slows down communication, decisions, that sort of thing. Now, when we move away from Saturnian energy, then we're actually, we're losing that chidra graha energy, but Mercury is going to be a little bit more prominent and clear and decisive. Okay, simply because we're not running Saturn. Okay, now Saturn is, again, on Mercury here. And we'll see as we go through the amshas, the subdivisional charts, it's amazing how many times Saturn is on Mercury or in a mercurial sign. So there's this like really deep relationship between Saturn and Mercury in this particular chart. So again, there's like delays and obstacles, tradition, that sort of thing. Okay, but the thing is, we have this Mars, again, we're in the Mars period, right? The Mahadasha, the main planetary period. So there's going to be some pushback to all of this delays and stuff like that. The other thing is this massive Saturn is the Lord, not only the fifth house, but also the fourth house of family lineage and tradition. Okay, and you can see Mars literally is opposing that. And the thing is, Mars, even though Mars is debilitated in Cancer, it's exalted in Capricorn, which is the fourth house. So that's where this, kind of theme for the moment is updating traditions. Now you could say, overthrowing. I think that's a bit strong because again, Mercury, and that's part of what we're learning here, and that's part of the energy we're moving towards is about building bridges. So, I think it's a little bit of a toggle here, and also like the Lugna nakshatra, so the rising sign nakshatra, lunar mansion is Vishaka. Vishaka is also this is the nakshatra right before Anuradha, so this is victory at all costs. So there might be like a little bit of a push here to make this happen, but I think overall it's going to be okay, and I think mostly well received. I think it's just like a big push for this person because they're so used to, there's so much in the habit potentially of taking their time, setting things up and all this sort of thing that when they suddenly kind of shift into less Saturnian energy by way of the Shah period shifting, and they get more clear, and it's like taking your foot off the brakes. Then this person can like move forward, okay, and then be a bit rebellious, but rebellious in a good, positive way that's nurturing and inclusive of others. Like again, Mars is in push and emotional nurturance and stability. Mercury's not around, so that's really great. Um, so yeah. So again, it may be a little bit awkward, initially, but I think it's well intended here. So then, okay, so again, once we move, let me just finish that up before I move on. So Mars, Mercury, February 15th. So there might be intermittent communication, and also decision making here. But there should be more clarity and forward movement, I would say, and kind of, unexpected, a little bit more active, than I think this person typically operates, especially when they're in the Saturnian period, and that Saturn is again slowing down. Not just Mercury, but Sun. Sun here is because Saturn is on the Sun as well. Sun is a general health, general well-being. This is the other leadership planet besides Mars, and this is the one that represents like the president or the king. Typically, is what they talk about. But you can see that the Sun is in transition here. The Sun is in the last degree. It's like within a few hours of this particular full moon, you can see Sun is going to shift from Scorpio into Sagittarius. Now, this particular point in the zodiac, the last 3 degrees of Scorpio and the first 3 degrees of Sagittarius Earth is considered to be the most unstable. So not only is the Sun Sunday in the first or last degree, but there are 3 places in the zodiac, and this is one of them, the crossing of Scorpio to Sagittarius, which are called Gandanta points. Okay, so so it's particularly even more unstable than a Sunday point. Okay, so you can see that the sun is kind of sunsetting in a way here. I mean, you know, not like literally in the day, but you can see that the sun is going through a big transition. And so personal leadership is going through a transition. Also, sun represents father, authority, government, boss. Um, so there can be, again, so that's why it looks like there might be sort of like a, what do they call it? Like a passing on the torch here. Yeah. From one kind of generation to the next, or one authority to the next year. Okay. Um, so we talked about Lagna Nakshatra, Vishaka. The moon nakshatra, the moon is in Mrigashirsha nakshatra. So Mrigashirsha is symbolized by a deer's head, and that has a seeking, exploring type energy, like deer moving through the forest, type energy. So the moon, again, represents the emotional mind, intuitive mind. So this is somebody who's like seeking and exploring. This may literally be somebody who does research for a living, because the moon is the lord of the 10th house of daily activity. So there can be this kind of like on again, off again energy in terms of daily work. This could be somebody who, has different gigs that they do. Like maybe they get involved with different research projects as part of their work. And so, but the thing is that they might be on one, like who comes to mind? I have a friend, she's in public health, and the nature of her work being in public health, I mean, she would travel all around the world, but like it's kind of a gig economy type thing. And this is before like, the gig economy, term came up like 20, 30 years ago. She'd go to a country, she'd be there for 3, 6, 8 months, helping with whatever research project, and then she'd have to find another one because a lot of it was like sourced or funded by, different governments or public health entities or whatever. And so because the funding sources were intermittent, that also meant that the jobs were, kind of, come as catch can, kind of thing. And the thing is, in this chart, we have this massive Saturn aspect in the 11th house of income. So, and Saturn is the avayogi for the chart. So the planet, one of the planets representing like lack of wealth. So this person has like an intermittent, like kind of research job. It seems like, because it's involved with information, whatever they're doing. Because in the 8th house again, it can represent research, and Moon is in Mrigashirsha, so again, searching, exploring. And then Jupiter's there, which is, kind of philosophy, and Mercury's aspecting there, which is like education. Mercury and Jupiter represent education. So this could be somebody who does something like that, where they're involved with different research projects that like turn over. Doesn't seem like they make a lot of money from it, so it might be like and since Saturn again is in Shatabisha, this could again be like, again, like public health research thing. Yeah. So, yeah, but the moon in general, besides being involved in research, again, the moon, it's somebody who's always kind of constantly exploring. And since moon is exalted in the 8th house here, the 8th house also represents deep psychology. And the moon and Jupiter together, those are both the intuition planets. So fairly intuitive person, although again, they've got this massive Saturn on Mercury. So they may not come across as intuitive as they actually are. But when we're moving from a Saturnian based Shah planetary period to not, kind of activating Saturn, then more of this intuition might come up. Might be more clear, or this person may not doubt their intuition as much because it seems like they're fairly, intuitive here. Then let's just more context here. So the moon is Sundhi, sun is Gandanta. We talked about that. So, but I think overall success with instability, appearance, leadership, direction, and person. So part of this is there is some instability here because sun again, can represent boss, father. Moon can represent mother. And both of them are unstable just because they're in the last degree of the signs that they're in. So there's shifting energies here. The other thing is Saturn is on the second house of family. It's Lord of the fifth house of children. It's aspecting the sun, which represents career, direction, and purpose. The other thing is that the other piece of, direction in life, usually we look at the seventh house, and the seventh house here is aspected again by this massive Saturn. So there's like the delays and obstacles here. And then the Lord of the seventh house is this, retrograde, debilitated Mars. So it seems like this person is currently, again, trying to change things, but having a difficult time moving forward, finding their path. Now, luckily, once again, the Dasha period changes from Mars Saturn to Mars Mercury. Then also this Saturnian influence on the seventh house of direction in life is going to be less. So then they might start moving forward. So that might also be part of the tradition. Like I know we're in the holiday period. So this could literally be like maybe somebody deciding that they're going to like host the family dinner for the first time, or instead of like having mom and dad do it or something like that. Although, I'm not sure there's a lot of physical expression here, which we'll get into. Okay. So a lot of this may be, again, mental and emotional, because again, we're picking up like moon, right, in the current Dasha period, and Mercury. So there's shifting from like ambition, but delays, feeling and thinking that there are delays and obstacles, to actually, sputtering forward, making decisions, and starting some new thing, adventure, whether big or small. Okay. So yeah, so again, there's some kind of shift in tradition going on here, either personal or professional, probably both. Okay, so the lugna here, Libra, Tula, it's a movable air sign, so a lot of thinking here, and we're going to get a lot of thinking also because Mercury and Moon are with Jupiter, which is an expansive planet. They're also with Sun, which is an energy, fire planet. It's going to bring energy here. And then, but again, the Saturn is going to be like putting on the brakes to Mercury, really slowing the Mercury down. But anyway, all of this though, even, is going to bring a lot of energy to the mind. And, logical, a lot of thoughts swirling here. And you can see that on various levels. Okay. So many thoughts, and then what did I have? Oh, and then there's also even more, because this debilitated retrograde Mars and Pusha is aspecting the Lugna here, which represents both the physical body as well as the personality. So this person might be, reconsidering previous actions here as part of this, because they're in the Mars period here, and attempt to create stability, because again, looks like their job is not the most stable or most well-paying. And that may be part of what's going on here, is that they're looking to move in a new direction. Because again, once they move into the Mercury period, like Mercury rules the ninth house of higher education, the ninth house here. It also represents the sixth, 12th house here, foreign places. Yeah, so this person might be thinking about going back to school, potentially. Yeah, so there's an attempt to create stability. It may be a bit heavy-handed, because again, because this person has a Saturn on the Mercury, they have a hard time making decisions. And so it might seem a bit awkward or stiff, heavy-handed, but at least there's some movement forward here. Yeah. The Lugnaceous Venus, that's the ruling planet for the chart, which is Venus. It rules Libra and Tula. Venus is in the fourth house of home and lineage, property. And Venus has Digbala here, also vehicles. So, and then Mars is aspecting here. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So it's going to be very strong. And then Jupiter is aspecting from the 8th house here. And Jupiter's in Rohini. So this is going to be a homebody type person. Okay. And again, if we're talking about like the holidays, It's seeming to me like this is somebody, we'll get into house by house, but it's seeming to me like this person really wants to be at home. They might have a lot of communication going on because of the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Moon um, situation across the 2-8 axis, which is the second house is the family inner circle, and the eighth house is deep psychology. But this is partner's family potentially, so they might be talking, to people, like calling them up and talking to them about happy holidays and happy New Year and that kind of thing. But like the third house, which is the second house is oral communication. The third house is like non-oral communication, and the ruling planet for that is Jupiter. Jupiter's gone to the eighth house here, so I'm not sure that there's a lot of physical. I don't think there's much outward socializing because this massive Saturn is on the 11th house of clubs, group, society. So I think this person is drawing in again some activity in the second house of close people, family, but then like really looks like this person really wants to like hibernate at home is what I'm saying, and enjoy themselves. Like Venus is there, Venus in Shravana. So Shravana is a nakshatra about like oral tradition, communication, that sort of thing, storytelling. And Jupiter's there. Jupiter's energy is there with Rohini, so an attractive, luscious kind of luxurious type energy. And then Mars and pushes. So again, like the three planets related to or involved aspecting the fourth house are pretty nice. The only drawback here is that the ruling planet for the fourth house is the Saturn. So the fourth house also represents mom, so this could be like mom is like, the grand hostess here. But mom might have some, mm, challenges here with health because, again, they're ruling planet Saturn, and also Saturn in Aquarius is in the second house from the fourth. So this mother's family, there might be some difficulties going on here. Or the other thing is, second house from the fourth is going to be Margashirsha for mom. Marga is one of the two, longevity houses. So it may be that mom is having some health issues here. And that may be why somebody wants to kind of go stay close to home as well. And kind of nurture, mom and that sort of thing. Even if mom's not the hostess, maybe it's just about, supporting mom. Yeah, so the Venus has gone to the fourth house. The fourth house is also a moksha sthana, so this person is motivated by freedom. That may be why, like, their job, for example, doesn't seem to be super stable. They might like the freedom. They might like the, being on one project for a few months and then moving on to the next, that kind of thing. Um, let's see. Oh, and Mars is aspecting. Oh, that's the other thing. Mars is aspecting both the Lugna and the Lugnasha. So Lugnasha is the ruling planet. So Venus and Libra both. So there's more Martian energy, again, this kind of erratic, pioneering leadership energy in this chart than you might initially, see. And that's important because, again, when this person is running Mars, they're going to be more in their leadership energy. When they're more in their Saturn period, they're going to be more of a like cautious, potentially overly cautious person. So again, right now they're running both, and then once they're free of this Saturnian, Bhukti sub period, then it might be, all engines, all engines or all wheels moving in the right same direction type thing. So let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, create compassion, generosity, comfort at home. Again, that's all this energy in the fourth house. Lineage of speaking, oral spiritual tradition and stories. Yeah, so again, this might also be the like passing of the torch type thing. Like really soaking up all this like family, lineage energy to potentially pass it on, right? And that again could be another way of passing on the torch. You know, um, let's see. Yeah, fourth lord is this massive Saturn. So there's strength here, tradition, but there could also be genetic diseases in the family because the fourth house can represent genetics. So there might be an issue here. There's so the Saturn, which is a chidra graha, again, planet of vulnerability, could be some sort of genetic issue going on here. So as far as yogas are concerned, so planetary combinations, we have a papa kartari yoga here. So we have Ketu in the 12th house, and we have Sun in the second house here. So those two malefics is kind of like a necklace of, malefic, natural malefic planets surrounding, flanking the lugna here. That's papa kartari yoga. So this is somebody, again, if this was a person who, has obstacles to face in life. Okay. This might be related to, again, what do we have here? Sun, so authority, father, general health, Mercury, decision making, especially anxiety, maybe because again, Saturn on Mercury can bring that. And then K2, so like sudden unexpected losses, we could see here potentially. So that's something going on. This person, again, if it's a person, has to face. There is a budhaditya yoga here, so that's Mercury and Sun in the same house, especially in the second house. That's considered qualified budhaditya yoga. So that's an intelligence combination, especially like related to like math, science, technology. Sasha yoga. So even though Saturn is massively strong, unfortunately the chidra graha here. It's a chidra graha for the chart. There's also some strength here. So there's it's not like a all bad thing that Saturn is in Jyotish here in the fifth house. Again, there's strength in being a chess player. I was just it's kind of funny right before I started recording. They just in the news I saw a headline that the youngest world champion ever just popped up. So I guess some 18-year-old guy from India is now the youngest world chess champion ever. So it's just I thought that was funny because that kind of vibe of like being a chess player fits this quite well. Because this person is going to have a lot of endurance. I mean, even though they have Mars, and they might be a little bit shaky in terms of their, actions. Maybe sometimes yes, sometimes no. When they think through things, there's going to be, it's going to be strong. It's going to have endurance. It's going to have longevity to it. The only thing, though, too, is that Saturn aspecting Sun and Mercury. These three planets represent the nervous system. So Sun represents the central nervous system, Mercury represents the peripheral nervous system, and Saturn represents the neuromuscular junction. So this could also be like, maybe partly the genetic thing going on here is that there's some neuromuscular, even skeletal condition going on here, for the person, the family, but also these three planets, when you get them together, you can get pain here. So there's some pain in the second house, with like family and inner circle and kind of thing. Okay, so what else? There's also, I would say, possibly a Gaja, if not a Gaja Kesari, definitely a Kesari yoga here. We have Jupiter and Moon in the same house together, and Moon is, it's in a negative house. It's Sunday, but it is also exalted, so that would be considered a yogic planet. So that yoga brings networking. And especially because we have Jupiter and Mercury here, on this 2-8 axis, that's a lot of communication here. So, this will be a lot of news and communication. And what else? I would say there's also Bala yoga here. We have 4 out of 9 planets in negative houses, Ketu, Rahu, Jupiter, Moon. So that can bring difficulties in childhood. And then the chidra grahas, we talked about Saturn, but the Moon, so again, the mind, especially the emotional mind. Jupiter, this might be children. This person might have difficulty having children. They might have, One, because Saturn is in its own sign here in the fifth house. But I don't think this person would have a lot of children. The other thing is that the Jupiter, which is the planet representing children, is in the eighth house of chronic issues. So maybe none, maybe one, potentially. I don't know. I didn't get deep into it, but um, that could be a possibility. And then Sun here. So again, we know that Sun is unstable. So again, government, authority, father figure, that sort of thing, potentially. Although I thought it was interesting. Like I looked at the ninth house briefly, and the lord of that is this Mercury in Anurata. So I think the father potentially, if there's a father involved here, even though they might potentially be ill currently, um, is somebody who's looking to build bridges. I didn't get that they were a um, yeah. I guess the whole family, like father. I didn't see that there were so many negative issues towards father here, like a personality-wise problems with father. And then siblings, the ruling planet for the third house of siblings is this Jupiter and Rohini. I mean, that's pretty nice, as far as sibling energy goes. And then mom is this Venus, Jupiter, Mars combination and Capricorn. So it seems like even if there's a passing of on of traditions and things like or updating of traditions, it's well received, I would say. I don't think there's like a lot of pushback. It just seems like kind of like a natural progression, but it seems like maybe this person finally feels like they're ready to step up and take that on. Like that may be the challenge. Like they feel ready for it as opposed to, maybe they like, didn't feel like they could before. But I don't think there's too much pushback from the family here. Um, so yeah, and then the other thing is that this Saturn on Sun, again, this might be somebody who has a hard time stepping into leadership because they have so many obstacles in their mind with this Saturn on Mercury as well. Even though there's intelligence here and, there's seems like mostly goodwill here and that sort of thing. Um, whether they feel able or ready to do it is another issue, I guess. So then the money planets here, Yogi is Sun, so there's some money there with the sun, and that's in the assets category. So, the second house of assets. So I think there's some wealth building desire here, even though it might be slow and there's, anxiety about it. Naviyogi is Saturn, so there's some drive towards wealth here with Sun in the second house, but then Saturn's gonna slow that down. And then the duplicate yogi is Venus, which is nice because it's Lugnatia. So even though this person doesn't drive a lot of income, or it might be intermittent income, it seems like they're fairly good at saving, I would say. Although that's a little bit erratic too, because the ruling planet for the second house is this debilitated Mars. So, yeah. Then what else? So, and even though we've been talking about the mind a lot, this person, again, if this is a person, has, four planets in right? We have four planets in water signs, so it's quite an emotional person. And again, Mars aspecting both the Lugna and the Lugnatia is going to bring more Martian energy to this chart than you might initially anticipate. So if we go through the other houses, the second house lord is a debilitated Mars. We have Vedanta Sun. Sun is in Jesta nakshatra. That's like a protective energy. It's also like an elder that can bring like an elder type energy as well. So, this could be news, of protective authority, government, law enforcement potentially. But this could also be like a father, because again, the sun is in the last degree here, so sun's moving out of here, um, and losing power, and then once it crosses into Sagittarius, it's going to be in Mula, which is a nakshatra about destruction. So again, this is like a turning over. It feels like a turning over of leadership here. And so it's like turning over the leadership from the elders, whether it's a father or a boss or something like that. That's what I was getting from this. But again, done in a nice way. Mercury's an honorata here, aspected by Jupiter and Rohini, and also by a debilitated but full moon and a swa Saturn. So speaking, again, the second house is oral community. Speaking, news, because the two media planets, Mercury and Jupiter there. This could be like FaceTiming somebody, like video chatting. I could see this being like video chatting. Yeah. Inner circle delays, but there's some delays here, distance here, some instability here. So it's kind of touch and go, maybe because everybody's kind of busy right now. But there is, I think, some reaching out here. But you can see there's a lot of energy in the second house, but like very little in the third house again. Non-oral communication, which would be like actual showing up, I think, to people's houses or showing up, with gifts or food or whatever people tend to do this time of year. So the third house lord is Jupiter. It's gone to the eighth house. This could also mean, because if we spin the chart to the third house, that'll mean that Jupiter is in the fifth house from siblings, and that'll be siblings' kids, and Jupiter in the fifth house is a karako bhava nashaya. That can mean the siblings are having difficulty with children, or will have difficulty with children. But again, I'm not getting like a in-person or physical showing of, again, since we're moving into the holiday periods here, but, talking to people, wishing them well, maybe video chatting, but I think that's about it. Otherwise, it's like hibernating at home. Then let's see. The fourth house, so we've been talking about the fourth house lord is Swa Saturn. Venus is there, aspected by an exalted Mars and Jupiter. So again, nesting at home. This is like just, making your whatever goodies and, movie nights and, chatting at home, by the fireplace type stuff. Fifth house we've been talking about, Swa, Saturn aspected by Mars. So difficulties with children, I would say, potentially, the kids might be sick, literally be sick, but attempting to soothe, uh, but also like shift or innovate old thoughts and habits, like engineer things in a new way. So like derive a new algorithm or protocol, I guess would be a way to think about that. Then on this slide, all the stuff on the left is the same. My notes on the right are a little bit different because we're talking about the other houses. So the sixth house, Lord is Jupiter. So this is like, since the sixth house Lord has gone to the eighth house, this could be acute issues becoming chronic. And Rahu is here, so there's some ambition, but instability because Rahu's not considered a stable planet. It can be a bit hidden or unexpected, that kind of thing. So this could be like a little bit of a shift in, daily activity here, or generally, again, if this is a person, this is somebody who's going to have like a kind of an erratic schedule, which makes sense with this Mars debilitated in the 10th house. That's also like an erratic energy of daily activities. So Rahu's in Uttar Bhadrapada nakshatra. That nakshatra is symbolized by the backlights of a funeral pyre. So a lot of destructive energy potentially, but also like what would I say? Like distance. So even though this person's day-to-day, schedule might be up in the air, they seem to manage it okay. Like, I don't know if it's great for them, but you know, um, they seem not to mind, I guess, is what I'm getting at here. Especially because the Lord Jupiter is in Rohini, so I think they might even like having the not having the same 2 days, same being the same. They might like that kind of a little bit of a different thing every day. But this can bring like GI issues, I would say. So especially because we have Saturn and Rahu in the fifth and sixth house, this could be GI issues. So maybe even temporarily, if we're looking at this as a transit chart, this could be like you know um, eating something, food poisoning. Especially Rahu can be like unexpected or poison even. So this could be like food poisoning or some kind of GI issue here. Um, Saturn and Rahu together in fifth and sixth house. This could even be like a gastroparesis, like difficulty digesting things. especially because we have Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Moon. We have like 5 planets basically associated with the second house of food intake. So if this person is indulging in eating quite a few things, it might cause an indigestion as well. Although again, this looks like a chronic issue with Saturn here. And also this Rahu in the 6th house. It's going to be like, releasing troubles temporarily. Again, stepping back from work, which a lot of people have a chance to do, luckily, during the holidays. Let go of the daily grind and routine, and just kind of hibernate at home if possible. The 7th house, again, it's challenging here. 7th house lord is Mars, which is debilitated. It's aspected by Saturn, which Saturn is debilitated in Aries. So there can be it seems like there's a lot of instability in the 7th house, which can represent, spouse-like partner, business partners, independent business, also the way forward. So I don't think this person is in independent business. I don't think so. But again, the daily work seems to be a little bit, again, intermittent, so yeah. So, and then again, having difficulty finding their way forward, especially when Saturn is debilitated here. That's going to be tough. But again, we're moving away from the Saturn period in February. Then the 8th house, we would talk about the 8th house lord is Venus. There's Jupiter, an exalted moon, aspected by Sun, Mercury. So trying to find the right words, deep intuition, alternative thoughts. Most of this we talked about. But a lot of churning, working to change deep mindset here, I would say. But it may be one step forward, 2 back. Because again, we have this, at least now, in this current period, Saturn on Mercury. Then the 9th house, the 9th house lord is Mercury. Again, I do feel like this is a passing on the torch energy here, because Mercury is the lord of the 9th house, which represents father, but also authority, guru even, and satsang, spiritual community, religion, that sort of thing. So again, it might be passing on certain responsibilities or certain predictions for somebody else to do, and this person's taking on. Then the 10th house lord is Sunday, full but exalted moon. We have a debilitated Mars here. It's aspected by Venus. So trying something new, I feel like, because again, Mars is going to have more oomph, more juice to it once we're out of the Saturn period here. So this person might come up with something new, some new gig here. Yeah. Intermittent work, some new contract popping up here. And could also be, it could also be this person's involved in like real estate, like maybe a real estate agent, that kind of thing. Because Mars represents property. Besides leadership, it represents property. And so Mars being in Pusha, this could be like trying to find, homes for people. And maybe, well, they wouldn't be a real estate agent because then, the 7th house would be strong. So maybe they work for like housing. Oh, there you go. Housing on like homeless people. Because especially this, or people who are ill, because it's massive Saturn aspecting the 11th house of clubs, groups, and society. So this person doesn't socialize very much generally, but this could also be, again, trying to find homes for people who are ill or homeless or older, like possibly work. Yeah, like maybe for a nonprofit who does that or overseas, again, looks like they have different contracts, so it looks like they're kind of a contract worker. Rather than fully like independent, because again, their 7th house of independent, work, business is not strong. I would say it's quite weak, so I don't think they would be fully on their own. But let's see. In the 11th house, the Lord is a Gandanta sun, so not very stable here. Aspected by Saturn, and again, Saturn is the Avayogi. So deep shift in groups, because again, that sun is going through a big shifting time right now. Also incomes as well. Because I do think this person might be going through a shift, especially because this Mars is shifting here in the 10th house. They might be going through a career shift, but then also might be looking to get involved in more education, to create more financial stability for themselves. But for the current period, or again, it looks like they're a homebody for the most part. They like to be free, but they also like to nurture, their people and their family. And then the 12th house lord is Mercury. Ketu's there in Uttar Falguni, so this is that nakshatra is it's symbolized by a hammock. So there's enjoyment here, but enjoyment with a purpose, and it's also aspected by Jupiter. So they may once they go into the Mercury period, there's going to be more energy in this house. There might be more foreign travel involved here. Yeah, I can see that. But also like this sorting through what still works and is enjoyable and valuable. Because again, there's a dual energy here to this Virgo 12th house. And it's a very practical energy. It's a dual earth sign. So there's like a sorting process, and especially with K2 there. K2 is can be erratic. It's like Mars, but even more erratic and sudden, unexpected. So there can be this sort of sorting through of what is valuable, even in terms of ideas and thoughts, because Jupiter represents philosophy and stuff like that. So this could be are my current thoughts supporting me in what I want to do or not? Because again, with this massive Saturn's been in Aquarius for 2 years. We only have a few months left, and so I've been talking about this for a long time. Saturn moving through this fixed air sign of Aquarius. This is all about uh, deeply changing an old paradigm. Okay, and so for somebody like this, basically they're in a Saturn return. And usually during a Saturn return, Saturn, comes back to its natal position every 29 years. The Saturn return usually sends people on a new path because, again, the old paradigm is shifted, crumbled, that sort of thing. So again, that's also what's making me think that this person might be starting a new job or going back to school, that sort of thing, because there have been delays in terms of moving forward up to now. And so part of the next phase, is does this idea, thought, whatever, relationship, is it still working? Is it still enjoyable? Is it still valuable? Because it's not just enjoyable, because Ketu's in Uttar Falguni. If it's in Purva Falguni, the nakshatra before, Purva Falguni is just just enjoyment, for the sake of enjoyment. It's like complete hedonism. K2, there has to be a purpose or goal or something else um, that makes the activity or thing, valuable besides just pleasure. Okay. So they're going to be sorting through all that, especially once they hit the Mercury period here. But let's look at the amshas, the subdivisional charts, to see what else we can pick up here. So if you're not familiar, the subzodiacs or amshas, subdivisional charts, these are basically, you get these, you derive these by slicing and dicing up the natal chart, little pieces essentially. And these are mostly used for timing. Okay, so some people, I don't know, I wasn't trained to do that. Some people look at these on their own. I was always trained that you can get some information, but you always want to bring these back and integrate the information you derive from them back to the natal chart. But it's more about kind of like what I've been talking about so far is during the Saturn period. Again, if this is a person we're looking at, there are going to be a lot of doubts, anxiety. There's a lot of delays in making decisions and lack of clarity going on here. Okay. Once they move into the Mercury period and they're no longer under this Saturn energy quite so strongly, then they're going to be jetting forward. Okay. So we'll see in each, of these charts how that looks in terms of is the Mars, Saturn, Rahu period better or worse, about the same? How is it different from the Mars-Mercury period that's coming up February 15th? So this slide has two relationship charts. The first one is Navamsha D9 for spouse and partnerships. The second one's a Drake and a D3 for siblings. So in the first chart here, Saturn and Rahu are not well placed, and they're on the 612 axis here. And they're with, let's see, on the moon here. So mental, emotional stress and losses potentially, which again isn't too surprising because the seventh house for this person was quite challenged, right? We had the lugna, or the dispositor for the seventh house is the debilitated Mars, and then it's aspected by a debilitated Saturn. I mean, that's a pretty rough combination, you know. And it may be that actually, I mean, if we're just looking at it as a transit chart, I don't think, like, I don't think that this person is really that interested so much in relationships or romance at the time, because again, the seventh house was challenged. We had this massive Saturn and the dispositor, the Danta sun for 11th house of clubs, group societies, and then the fifth house was Saturn and Shatabishas. So the fifth house is romance, the seventh house is spouse, the 11th house is like, you know, out and about. Again, I think this person just wants to, you know, nurture the people that's already in their lives, potentially. Yeah, stay close to that. So stay close to home rather than go out. So, so the Mars Mercury period, you know, once you can see there's a big shift here. Mars and Mercury will be a better period, because both Mars and Mercury are in positive houses here. The thing though is it's not without issue, because there's a bunch of soul enemies relationships here. So soul enemies is a concept just using the divisional charts, not the main chart, natal chart. But basically, it's like Mars is a soul enemy of Mercury. So there's, you know, fighting and arguments here, even though they're in positive houses. So it's going to be a better period than a Rahu Saturn period, but there's going to be, you know, issues here. And then Saturn is a soul enemy to Sun, and Sun is a soul enemy to Jupiter. Jupiter's, you know, aspecting, you know, it's 12th house here. And then, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of soul enemies here. So again, there's fighting going on here, yeah, which isn't too surprising from the natal chart. There is a Saraswati yoga here, so there is some, you know, creativity. And the thing is, you know, the spouse, you know, if this person, whenever, because what comes after Mars? Mars, Rahu, Jupiter. You know, if this person gets to a Jupiter-Venus period, like, that would be great. Because Jupiter is in its, you know, is exalted here, and that's a natural benefic, and Venus is Swa in the, you know, in its own sign in the second house. So whenever this person runs a Venus or Jupiter period, you know, then this might be a better situation, in terms of like spouse or long-term partnerships or whatever. But you can see there's like 5 planets, 1, 2, 3, 5 planets in negative houses here. That's a bala yoga. So I think in a lot of ways, there may be a lot of challenge, again, if this is a person's chart in terms of a long-term relation, you know, serious committed relationship. Yeah, so anyway, the Drake in a D3, Mars is not well placed, but it is in its own sign, so things should get better over time. The 5th Lord has gone to the 12th house. So again, there can be losses through children here. Also, Jupiter is debilitated. That's the, you know, graha karaka. That's the planet representing children, debilitated in the 8th house of chronic problems. And also, Jupiter represents optimism. So there can be lack of optimism here. So again, you know, there is some challenge to the sibling house 3, the 3rd house of the natal chart. Let's see. Mercury is also quite challenged here. We have Saturn aspecting it, so we have Saturn on Mercury again, and Mercury's debilitated. Actually, if you look at the Shadbala score for this chart, Sun was really, you know, in the dumps there. I think Sun didn't even get like 100 points. So when you look at the Shadbala score, it's basically they're looking at condition and strength of the different planets in the subdivisional charts to give you like get a deeper understanding of the strength of planet. Sun was like 90 or 95. It was really low. And then Mercury wasn't that much higher, which again, Mercury was quite challenged being with a Gandanta sun and then that massive Saturn on it. And you're kind of seeing the same thing here. So, and this is all happening in the 10th house of work for siblings. The 7th lord, oh wait, 7th lord. Oh yeah, so this could also be a Bala-Rishta yoga. I mean, there are 4 out of 9 planets in negative houses. Jupiter is debilitated again. Okay, and then Saturn. So Saturn is not only on Mercury, but it's in the sign of Mercury of Gemini, which is the dual air sign. So I think the sibling as well, it's quite detached, fearful, anxious, worried, similar to the native. And we'll see as we go through that seems to be true a lot of the times. This Saturn-Mercury relationship seems to be fairly consistent. So again, I think that's a big thing for this person is how much drag the Saturn is putting on Mercury. Again, the planet of decision making and communication and this sort of thing. It's going to make them, fairly detached here. Yeah, and again, there may be some positive moments where it's spouse, but there's challenges here as well. So I can be a drawing. And what else do we have? We have more relationships. So at the top, we have the Saptamsha D7 for children, then a Dwadashamsha D12 for parents and grandparents. So on the top chart, Mercury is not well placed, and it's in an enemy sign. So again, Mercury's weak. Saturn is in Gemini again. So again, a lot of, Saturn-Mercury combinations here. Distance and mind and decisions and sort of thing. And then the Sponsor for Saturn is in the 6th house of acute issues. Mars is aspected by Saturn. Yeah, Saturn. And there's a mutual aspect, right, going on. Let me just double check. 1, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, there's a mutual aspect between Saturn and Mars. So it's going to be like a lot of like engineering type energy. Besides that, we have an Aquarius Lugna here. So Aquarians can often be, long, thoughtful, engineering type, science and engineering type people. So I think if this person does have children, most likely one only, if they had any, the kids would be quite like the native in terms of like the kind of distance and science and engineering type background. There is ambition here. There is rebelliousness here. There is leadership here. And strong in the arts education as well, because Venus is in its own sign, Moon is in its exalted sign. Those are the arts planets. So yeah, it looks like education's quite strong, but more of like an engineering and science type mind, I would say. A mix though. There's some creativity here. Then the Dwadashamsha D12, parents and grandparents. Mars is not well placed, but it's Swan, the success, so there'll be some improvement. Rahu is the Jiva Karaka for maternal grandparents. So there can be some issues with maternal grandparents. Also, this could be like parents or grandparents that immigrated from other foreign countries. And here we go. Saturn is in Gemini again. Oh no, Saturn is in Virgo. Sorry, I have to fix that. Saturn is in Virgo, but it's aspecting Gemini and it's aspecting a debilitated Mercury. So you can see like the Saturn, quite dominates Mercury, not just in the natal chart, but deep through this whole thing here. So that's, again, going to bring anxiety, detachment, being quite practical. The other thing is there could be a lineage of poverty here because the Saturn, which is the Aviyogi, is in the 4th house of family lineage. Jupiter's debilitated again, so this may be, not feeling so optimistic here. Sun is debilitating the 5th house, so feeling disempowered. So I think there is a pretty tough background coming through with the family line here. And then in the Lugna, you have Rahu, Saturn, Mars in the Lugna. I mean, there's ambition to make a new start. So again, I kept getting like maybe an immigrant family coming through here, but not an easy path through the family line, I would say. Okay, so now on this side, we're looking at education and career. So at the top is a Sadamsha D24 for education, and the second chart's the Dashamsha D10 for career. So in the first chart, Saturn is not well placed, and it's with the Lugnatia has also gone to the 12th house, and the Lugnatia is Jupiter, which represents education. So, probably not, there's probably going to be delays because maybe not college. College probably worked out pretty well, but like maybe higher education, there may be delays. And so maybe this person's been working. Now this is when they're thinking of starting up something new. Yeah. Because you can see Mars is in its own sign in the 5th house here of like counseling, and it's with Mercury. So unlike a lot of the previous charts and the natal charts, now this person is going to have strength here with this innovative, pioneering mind and education here. And when we have Mars and Mercury together, we can often get like computers. And so this person might be getting into like like IT type stuff. That's what I'm seeing here. And so now actually education will be quite strong during the Mars period, and especially the Mars and Mercury together should be pretty good. Yeah, because Saturn would have been in 12th house of losses. So again, this could also be potentially like media marketing, because Mercury can represent media and marketing. Maybe engineering or management overseas. Yeah, because Mars is aspecting Saturn, where this will be a strong 12th house actually, because Mars will be aspecting its own sign. So maybe again, if this person was doing like, public health type stuff, maybe they're adding in like an IT component to that, that would, make them more marketable or make things, maybe it would like push them up in terms of their skill set, in terms of making them more of a techie. And so that would open up more jobs to them or different jobs to them or more lucrative jobs to them, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's actually quite a good time for education, again, if this is a person. Dashamsha D10 for career. Mars and Mercury are not well placed, but they are in parivartana. So that's going to make them stronger. The other thing is that Mars and Mercury are both in the 3rd house and the 8th house. And so when we have planets that we're running in the amshas in the 3rd and 8th house, that can indicate change. So, so I could see again what I was kind of glancing or gathering from the natal chart is that there might be a career change in place, ahead for this person. And then, let's see, Saturn is aspecting the moon and Venus. So there's going to be emotional stress here. Maybe stress for the family, friends, spouse, siblings, yeah, because Saturn is, all over the, relationships here. So if they do have a career that's intermittent or maybe away from home, like traveling, like internationally or something, that might be tough, for their friends and family to keep in touch. I know, like my friends who, and I was doing it myself for a while. I was in public health for a while. And I've gone on international missions, but they were just short term, like few week type things. It wasn't like it was a chronic, 6 months here, 12 months here, kind of thing. I thought maybe that was going to be my thing, but I decided at some point I wanted to be more settled than that. So, um, yeah, it's hard, to stay in touch, just even as a friend, of people who have that kind of lifestyle, I would say. So maybe that's why this person isn't physically present and they're just talking through FaceTime or something with friends and family, just staying at home and enjoying that. Like, because again, if their job is that they're here and there and everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, like maybe they just want to chill out. I'm sorry, there's like this big hawk flying outside my window. Is it a hawk or eagle? It was a big bird. I don't know, too far away to see if its head was on. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, so big changes career-wise, with stress though, and but again, once we're moving out of the Saturn period, there may be less stress for all these relationships. There's still challenges though, because you have two karako bhavanashas. Mars is in the third house, Jupiter's in the fifth house. So there's challenges with siblings and children, um, you know, wrought through career. Again, if this person, doesn't have a steady job, I mean, I can throw some people off if they're not used to that. Mars and Mercury in parivartana again. So again, you're going to keep getting this Mars-Mercury combination. That's why I kept getting like media and IT management type stuff. Sun is exalted here in the Lugna. So whenever they do run Sun, that's going to be very strong. So there is leadership here. So Mars is, swa through parivartana. Mercury swa through parivartana. Sun is exalted. Again, there's leadership and like managing information and communication here. Um, So when they run those plants, they're not currently running them right now. And also you see Rahu is in the 10th house here. So there's some unknown, factors here in day-to-day activity, but you're starting to shift, especially in February, after the new year, you'll shift into this big change for a career here. And let's see, on this slide we have wealth. So the top chart's a Rudamsha D11 for income, then the Chatra Shamsha D4 for assets. And let's see, in the first chart, Rahu's not well placed, but it is Swa, so there's some acute instability, but it'll get better. Saturn and Jupiter and Virgo Lugna. So there's gonna be a dual, toggling between pessimism and optimism here as far as income's concerned. And there might actually be like literally multiple streams of income because Virgo's a dual sign. And here we go again. Look, you have Mercury, Mars, and then Saturn is Jupiter's in parivartana with Mercury. So that means Saturn is in Virgo, it's aspecting Gemini, and it's with Mercury to parivartana. So again, a lot of Saturnian influence when Saturn is active, which it currently is. Once Saturn gets turned off, so to speak, with the new dasha, then we're going to get more activity here with Mars. Yeah, so there's going to be more like initiative and more action, as opposed to just thinking. So again, it's not always bad, but sometimes it can really people never come to a decision, and then they miss the boat, so that's a problem sometimes. And again, with Jupiter, Mercury, in parivartana here, that means education, media, communication is all over this chart. Um, again, I kept getting, and then with Saturn and Mars and all this, like I kept getting like engineering, IT, like technology, engineering type stuff. Yeah, but with the Saturn on Mercury, Gemini, and Virgo, is like, wow, this got difficulty making decisions during the Saturnian period. And also the Saturn there, that's lower income as well. So Saturn's going to bring that down. And then the other thing is we have 6 grahas in dual signs. I mean, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Sun, Moon. That can be a lot of confusion, but it can also mean multiple streams of income. So that's why this person might be like bumping up, education to open up more avenues or doors for them in terms of their career and income. Then the second chart, Chatra Tamsha D4 for assets. Well, Rahu is not well placed, but it's in parivartana with Mercury. So it's going to make both stronger. And I would say this person's currently focused on obtaining land or property. That's pretty strong here because Mars aspecting its own sign of Aries in the Lugna here. So Mars represents property. And then Saturn is exalted in the, no, sorry. What did I put? Oh, Saturn is exalted in the 7th house because Saturn is aspecting the 7th house. And Saturn also is planet representing property. So I think this person looks like they're looking to settle down, like again, get more educational credentials or certificates or whatever, so they have some more opportunities and stabilize their income. And then it looks like they, want the stuff most people want. Like, looks like they want a house. Venus is in the 4th house. Venus represents vehicles and the 4th house represents vehicles. So like car, home, that kind of stuff. And there may be some conflict though between their thoughts and groups, like pioneering a new path because of this Rahu, uh, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Sun combination here. So, because you're going to have on Mercury, you're going to have Rahu, you're going to have Saturn, you're going to have Sun. Saturn's going to be the strongest because Mercury's in the sign of Saturn. It's in Aquarius. So I think making the decision, especially when Saturn's active, which it is now, and Rahu's going to bring confusion. Saturn's going to bring delays. Once we're past the Saturn Rahu period, there should be more clarity on Mercury to move forward. But again, conflicts in terms of just, I think, making the decision essentially. But there is strength here in the 11th house of income here. So I think it's more like just like having the opportunity to make more income is an asset, and that's what this person is currently working on. And then once again we're in the Mars Mercury period, it should take off more. And this slide is about health. There was some health stuff that came up, and we're seeing more of it here. In the natal chart, there was some health stuff. So the first chart is the Tajik Shashtamsha D6 for acute issues. The second is the Tajik Ashtamamsha D8 for chronic issues. Then the Bamsha D20 summer strength and resilience. So in the top chart, Saturn is not well placed. It's in the 12th house. So losses through worries and delays right off the bat, which is not surprising given the natal chart with Saturn on Mercury. Let's see. Once we move into, and we see Rahu in the 4th house there of, not just home and family line, but happiness. So like, how do I make things better for myself potentially? And Mars and Mercury in the 5th house there, that's going to bring again new ideas, new initiatives, thoughts once we move into that period. So things should get better once that period starts. Then the Tajik Ashtamamsha D8 for chronic issues. All the planets are well placed, but not without issue here. Rahu and Ketu are aspected by a debilitated Mars, so there's a lot of uncertainty related to second house issues like family, inner circle. Again, because I just think this person's lifestyle is not the most steady, with that Rahu in the 6th house of daily activities, and then Mars debilitated in the 10th house. Mercury's debilitated again. The other thing with Mercury being debilitated and not strong in so many ways, that's another why I don't think this person would be like an independent, like an entrepreneur, completely independent person. Yeah. So then let's see. Mercury's debilitated. Saturn aspects the debilitated Mars, Sun, Moon. So yeah, I mean that's problems there. Difficulty making decisions, taking actions, being consistent. Yeah, so I mean they sort of make it work. But I don't know if it works that great for the people in their lives, I would say, because you have Saturn on Jupiter, so which can represent children, Saturn on Mars, siblings, Moon and Sun, mom and dad. Venus is in the 12th house. Venus represents, a spouse potentially, but so it might be this person's kind of lifestyle. is problematic for the people around them. That may be another thing, in terms of updating traditions. It could be that, this person's previous MO of being a little more unsettled, I guess we could say. Maybe that's what's the tradition that's kind of being updated. It's like, no, I think it's finally time to kind of put down some roots, like some people say that, yeah. Then the Bombsha D27 at the end here for strength and resilience. This is pretty challenging, I'd say. I mean, Saturn, Mars, Mercury are not well placed. Saturn and Jupiter and parivartana, so there's some protection here. 5 planets are not well placed in the whole chart. So this person doesn't have a lot of resilience, I would say. And then I would say issues with the mind, because both of the mind planets, Moon and Mercury, and emotions are there, inflammation, general health, skin, breathing. Like, there's a lot potentially going on for this person, which again, I'm not surprised because that uh, Saturn and Shatabisha, Swa, and then also, again, this might be related to, genetic issues, potentially some genetic issues here. But I do think spirituality and alternative thoughts do help with some of this stuff because Mars is strong in its Swa position in the 8th house with Mercury. So yeah, so that may be also why um, this person's thinking of maybe shifting to a more steady lifestyle, not just the income and the stress on relationships, but there can be a lot of health issues. Like I've treated people. Like one woman comes to mind. She was in the Peace Corps, so kind of an international service mission, United States service mission to South Africa, I believe. She was there for a couple of years, and she picked up some kind of parasite. So she came back. She wasn't even like 30 yet, and she came back and she had all this like joint pain and stuff like that. So we did a parasite cleanse for her, and that cleared things up for her. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that they went on international health missions and came back with strange diseases that were hard to cure and fix because they didn't know what it was. They didn't even know how to analyze it or detect it or whatever. Like a lot of parasite, even today, parasite infections or viral infections, they don't have tests for a lot of these things. They're not good tests. So they're just sort of shooting in the dark, which is essentially like Saturn and Shatabisha. So maybe this person picked up like a GI bug or something like that during their travels potentially. Like I remember I went down to Nicaragua and just for a few weeks, to help out the doctors who were down there more permanently. And the doctors were sick, so they had me doing homeopathy on them, and usually pretty good with homeopathy. So yeah, and then all the people like, and it was kind of ironic. Like the whole team we went down with, there were 6 of us. We went down. Everybody on the trip got sick. This is while I was still in medical school. I organized this trip of students and docs to go down there. Everybody got sick. I mean, from like motion sickness to viral. Somebody got almost like we didn't know what it was. We still don't know what it was. Like some sort of infectious disease, like malaria type, sweating and something. And so it was kind of funny because the only thing we had with us was my homeopathy kit. So I was like, guess what, everybody? Everybody's getting homeopathy. And luckily it worked, that's where I really, I think I gained confidence with my ability with homeopathy because in my mind, I was just a student and I was like, well, guess what? We're going to see if this homeopathy works, if I have any skill with homeopathy, because there's a need, So, so after that, like whenever I travel now, I never travel without my homeopathy kit because, yeah, it's just, uh, you're not in your element and you're introduced to new bugs and microbes and all this kind of stuff and not eating your same food and just traveling increases vata, decreases your wind energy, so it decreases your resistance, so anyway, that's what this particular person might be experiencing. But you can see there's not a lot of resistance here, and so that alone, just the potential health issues from living that kind of lifestyle that's not very steady, health issues might be part of why this person's thinking of making some education-based, career-based education decisions. Da 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 da. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. Then this last slide, we have spirituality and worship. So at the top, the Panchamsha D5 for innate spirituality, and the Vimshamsha D20 for formal worship. So Rahu, Mercury, Mars, not well placed. So not a great, time doing their own thing, spirituality wise. Rahu is with a Swa Jupiter in the 12th house. So this might be like foreign spirituality retreat that this person's interested in. They could be doing a little bit of that. Maybe that's why they're not physically with family, and they're just FaceTiming. Mercury is in the 5th house. So there might be some mantras going on here. Saturn's in the 9th house. So this might be like literally avoiding satsang or distance from satsang, spiritual community. Moon is aspecting its own house in the 7th. So this might be, they're not running the moon right now, but they're running a sub period right now. But when this person runs the moon, which they would have before their Mars period, probably very much involved in like caring towards others generally, like caring for the public, like people off the street. Might be literally people off the street, but just general public, like public health type stuff. Yeah. And then we have Saturn and Virgo again. So again, we keep seeing this Saturn Mercury combination in various forms. But yeah, so I think again, something overseas potentially, and then caring for others, the public. So again, this might be some sort of international mission. But you can see the Vimshamsha D20 formal worship is quite a bit stronger. So Saturn's not well placed, but it's in parivartana with Jupiter. So, and Saturn represents more like formal religion, and Jupiter represents spirituality. So just that brings quite a bit of strength to the chart. The other thing is that you're going to have Saturn, Swa, and Aquarius with Venus and Jupiter in the 10th house. So again, that might, literally their job might be kind of their worship, like having a job where they're caring for others, through public health or something like that, is like their thing, showing up every day and helping people that way. Rahu, what is it? No, retrograde Swa, Mars, and the 7th house. Okay, so here you go. So transforming relationships. So in both the D5 and the D20, the 7th house is quite strong. So so it looks like there's clarity about spirituality and worship and supporting others and transforming relationships and leadership in that area. Rahu in the 9th house drive towards unusual groups or foreign groups. Again, this could be like overseas, either religion, spirituality, or groups. And then Jupiter and Saturn parivartana, traditional religion plus spirituality. So it's like traditional plus a twist is what I was seeing here. And then again, you have a Swa Saturn aspecting Mercury again. So that's a lot of Saturnian influence in Mercury deep through this whole thing here. Alrighty, so there you go. All right, so as always, thanks so much for stopping by, listening to one of my talks, and thanks for all your support of my work and the channel. The subscribing and liking and commenting and sending in donations. It really means a lot, so thank you for all of that. And again, teaching videos on Vedic Astrology on my consults playlist. For more famous birth charts, you can look at my birth charts archive list 2024 video for all of the list of all the famous charts I've analyzed on the on the channel. So again, famous people, places, moments of time. I do offer individual birth chart readings. If that's interesting to you, you can email heartlight@yahoo.com. I do them live on Zoom, on Skype, on recorded video, and then as gift certificates are available if you want to give somebody a reading. And then I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine. That channel's called Nature Source Care. I do talk about Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine there, and yoga, as well as other paradigms of medicine like homeopathy and naturopathic medicine. So if that's interesting to you, you can check that out too. As always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. All right, so until the next one, take good care. Namaste.